Chidera had always dreamed of a perfect love story, and when Adekunle walked into her life, it seemed like a divine answer to her prayers. They had met at a mutual friend's wedding, and their connection was instant. Adekunle, a brilliant civil engineer with a warm smile, and Chidera, a creative fashion designer with a contagious laugh, seemed like a match made in heaven. Their relationship blossomed over the years, filled with shared dreams, deep conversations, and unwavering support for each other. Despite coming from different tribes, Chidera was Igbo and Adekunle was Yoruba. Their love was strong enough to withstand the initial resistance from their families. Love has no language or tribe, Adekunle once said to Chidera when they faced opposition. We will prove it to them. After 3 years of dating and 2 years of courting, the walls of resistance crumbled and their families gave their blessings. Their wedding was nothing short of a fairy tale, a colorful celebration of love that united not just two individuals, but two wholesome cultures. The early years of their marriage was blissful. They supported each other's careers, traveled together, and built a beautiful home filled with laughter. However, as the years passed, the absence of a child began to cast a shadow over their joy. At first, they brushed it aside, telling themselves that the time will come. But as the second year turned into the third, Chidera started to feel the weight of her barrenness. Family gatherings became painful reminders as relatives whispered and exchanged pitying glances. Adekunle, what if something is wrong with me? Chidera asked one night, tears running down her face. Adekunle took her hands in ease and looked into her eyes. Nothing is wrong with you, my love. We will face this together no matter what. You are my wife, and that is enough for me. His unwavering support became her anchor. He protected her from the sharp words and probing questions of others, standing as a wall between her and the judgment of the world. By the fourth year of their marriage, they decided to explore medical options. They tried different fertility treatments and underwent 4 rounds of IVF over the next 2 years, each failure hitting Chidera harder than the last. I feel like I'm failing you, she confessed one evening. Her voice came in a whisper. You could never fail me, Adekunle replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. We will keep hoping and trusting God. Our story isn't over yet. Their faith was unshaken, even as they moved from one doctor to another, searching for answers. Alongside medical efforts, they sought spiritual help, attending vigils and prayer meetings, holding on to the belief that God would one day answer their prayers. As they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, Adekunle surprised Chidera with a brand new car. You deserved all the happiness in the world, he said, his eyes shining with love. Chidera smiled and hugged him tightly. She appreciated the gesture, but deep down, she knew that nothing could replace the joy of holding her own child. One evening, after much contemplation, Chidera brought up the subject of adoption. Adekunle, have you ever thought about adopting a child? She asked cautiously. Adekunle frowned. Adoption? That's not what I had in mind. I still believe we'll have our own child. But what if this is God's way of blessing us? She pleaded. There are so many children out there who need a home, a family. We could be that for them. It took months of persuasion, tears, and heartfelt discussions. But eventually, Adekunle agreed. If it will make you happy, then let's do it, he said. His love for Chidera outweighed his reservations. After careful preparations and endless paperwork, they visited an orphanage. Among the many children, one little boy caught Chidera's eyes. His name was Joel, a bright, bubbly child who was just over a year old. As she held him for the first time, Chidera felt a surge of love that she couldn't explain. "This is our son," she said to Adekunle, her voice filled with emotions. Joy brought new life into their home. His laughter echoed through the house, and for the first time in years, Chidera felt truly content. 8 months after adopting Joel, Chidera began feeling unwell. At first, she dismissed it as exhaustion from taking care of a toddler, but the symptoms persisted: noisy, heartburn, and unusual fatigue. Reluctantly, she went to the hospital. When the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, you are pregnant," Chidera was speechless. "Pregnant?" she repeated, tears streaming down her face. Chidera left the hospital in a daze. She couldn't wait to share the news with Adekunle. When she told him, he lifted her off the ground, spinning her around with joy. "This is a miracle," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "After all these years, God has answered our prayers." The months that followed were a whirlwind of excitement and preparation. Joy remained the center of their world, and Chidera ensured he felt loved and included as they await the arrival of the new baby. When Ada was born, she became the center of Chidera's world. Joel, once adored, was now treated with disdain. "Chidera, he's still our son," Adekunle reminded her when she scolded Joy harshly for spilling juice. On several occasions, her frustration boiled over, leading to severe punishment for Joel. His cries often drew the attention of neighbors who began to worry about the boy's well-being. "You wanted this, Chidera," Adekunle said one evening. "Joel didn't ask to be here. We chose him." But Chidera was unmoved. To her, Joel was no longer necessary. The neighbors eventually reported Chidera to the orphanage. Officials arrived and, after observing the situation, decided to take Joel away. Adekunle tried to intervene, but Chidera didn't seem to care. "I have Ada now," she said coldly. Joel's departure left Adekunle heartbroken. He couldn't understand how the woman he loved could become so callous. 2 years later, Ada was now in school. One afternoon, Chidera's maid went to pick her up, but on their way home, they were involved in a terrible accident. Both the maid and Ada were rushed to the hospital, but despite the doctor's efforts, Ada didn't survive. Chidera was devastated. The grief consumed her and she retreated into a shell of sorrow and regret. With Ada gone and Joel no longer in their lives, Chidera was left alone with her thoughts. The silence in the house was deafening, a stark contrast to the joyful noise it once held. She began to question herself. Was this my punishment? Did this happen because I didn't treat Joel right? Adekunle, though equally heartbroken, stood by her, but their relationship carried the scars of her actions, and she felt terribly guilty.